What's up, Marsh? How you doing?
I'm doing well, buddy. I'm doing good.
Hey, thanks for jumping on, bro. I know you got a lot going on these days, so I'm thankful that you are I think you're the second guest who's come on now twice. Been doing the show now for, I don't know, a year and a half or probably a little bit longer. You were one of the first people on my show, man, and what was so you being one of the first people on the show, I realized I learned what when you, well, I should say Kylie probably learned that when you put a podcast into like the accounts that syndicate everywhere, you got to put whether it's a clean version or
Yeah,
not.
yeah, yeah.
I
I
was
was
like,
probably a little bit excessive.
I was like, oh yeah, this is what clean version means. And unclean. So anybody who's listening right now, you might get some F bombs. So Marshall's my friend. We're gonna have a raw conversation, but I just think it's funny because that's what I learned through that era of having a podcast was if you have a certain amount of F bombs, you might not be a clean show.
You may not be registered as clean
But
from that.
also with people when they come on, they'll sometimes ask like, can they swear? And I'm like, if I get involved in censoring someone's conversation, then like, please let me stop doing this
Yeah,
podcast
for
because that
sure.
would be the most unauthentic thing is to bring on a guest and be like, how would you even?
Say what you're saying, but like not in your authentic way. Find a different way to say what you want to
Yes,
say.
like like that would just be the worst show I could ever do was like, hey, I love your mindset and what you're trying to accomplish. Come on and uh let's do it a certain way. So, anyways, I just thought that was funny because that was probably a year and a half ago. And I mean, it really was
Yeah,
one that was super talked about. I got messages from quite a few people that said that was really cool to hear somebody who was so authentic because I think we talked about a lot of different things.
yeah,
And you just, yeah, one thing I've noticed about you and being your friend is you speak from the heart. You know, it can be very
yeah,
direct, but you also speak my type of language. So that's why I think
yeah.
we're friends and we get along. But hey, man, if you could, I'll link the last show and the show notes so people could hear kind of your more of your backstory because we went more into it that we're going to kind of compound on that now. But just for 30 seconds, just kind of give me a general, what's up with Marshall, how's your business run, things like that.
Okay. Um, so kind of what's up with Marshall is I'm in a really big learning curve of life. I just had my son. He's about 6 weeks old. My wife is officially a homemaker, absolute just animal of a woman. I mean, it was a woman that I respect like deeply. Um, Now, through all this, we are continuing to do our resale company. Danny and I actually started a true investment company here locally, where we have contractors on full time payroll. Where we have some back end systems, we have a VA specifically dedicated to that company. So, rather than just the hustle of doing a couple flips, like we're really trying to build this into a business. Um, and we have that going. And then on top of that, we have our investment division in Missouri, which mostly concentrates on portfolio stuff, which is just more the BRRRR strategy and just getting in and out of properties and relatively consistently refinancing them into a long term rental. More, tax depreciation conversation is more kind of what we're concentrating there, just to offset our active gains. Um, but yeah, it's where so we're trying to balance all that. I'm still trying to build being wired the way I am. I'm trying to learn how to balance my life at home, my life with my son, while also being like just who I am in the business space, which is somebody that like I can grow really big stuff pretty quickly, but it's this yin and yang of cause myself anxiety by just going so fast to controlling that anxiety, getting back balance. Okay, we build again. Okay, let's control it. Um, but yeah, so it's just a lot of a really big learning phase of life right now.
Well, I mean, just having your son, I mean, man, I give you props for, I mean, I mean, for the listeners to know, like you run a successful few companies. And so, I mean, with what goes on, your day probably looks like a lot of people's years. And I think that's just,
Yeah.
like the amount of issues that come through and that you've got to solve and build and that kind of stuff. It's got to be like a huge learning curve with having your son now. So how is that? Because I really, I think there's a lot of listeners that probably have gonna have kids or have a new kid, and it's like,
Mhm.
how do they do the whole? I'm still going to go accomplish, my business goals while I'm still going to accomplish being a good dad. What's some advice right now that you're noticing? I mean, you're kind of on the job
Yeah.
training, is what I would say. It's not like you've mastered it, but I mean, 6, 7 weeks now, I'm sure you figured out a few things.
Yeah. Um, Kind of the big thing right now, up front, it was the understanding that there's going to be periods of life that one has to take uh, a back burner to the other. And in the first few weeks of Liam being here, the business had to take a back burner. And, you know, kind of I'm fortunate that I forced myself to build so heavily that like my back burner was we closed 3 deals, we finished 2 flips, and we had 4 properties under contract in Missouri for burnout. So like that was a back burner. So like it allowed me to control those thoughts of okay, I'm not doing enough to okay, like this is a period of time that like I'm concentrating my efforts on helping Danny heal and getting into a flow with Liam and teaching Liam like the most basics of stuff, which is like just what's night and what's day and built a business that while I really wasn't working, it was still going. And we were able to, I mean, not to my standard, but for what others would consider do pretty damn good in a 30-day period that we slowed down for a bit. So I think that was one understanding was just that like there's periods of life that one had to take a back burner and the business was the one on that one, which rightfully so. Um, and then outside of that, it's just like extreme time blocking. It's being very clear with like we just got a new office, which is a big learning curve for Danny and I for different reasons. There's some nervousness there of me going to an office space because previously when I had an office, I would work 12, 14-hour days. Um, and it goes with the personal agreement and commitment that like I'm like going phones on do not disturb, Instagrams are off, no scrolling, like I'm in and out, I'm there 5 hours, I'm home, allowing me to ideally be more efficient with my time because like I love being home, I love working from home, I really do, but there's only so much capacity I have to get distracted and come back to work and still get done everything I need to get done and and is going to be a learning curve. And so that extreme time blocking was another one. Going to the office, working out, bring my stuff to the gym, shower there, get ready there, go to the office, do my team meetings, get everybody situated for the day, do my work for my 3 4 hours, get back home so I can spend time with my family. Um, and then from there, I another big learning curve is like we are creatures of patterns, my wife and I. And so every night, most nights I give Liam the bath. Some nights Danny gives Liam the bath when he's in his other every other day bath right now. I always give him the bottle. So like that's my time to really connect with them. Like Danny's doing her thing, pumping, just like getting herself situated, taking a long shower, getting all the spit off him. And like that's just the time for Liam and I for an hour and a half, 2 hours to just be alone, hang out. And do the bonding. So that has helped a lot too, where it's just very dedicated roles. And yeah, those are kind of probably the ones that have stood out.
Yeah, man, I like how you talk about seasons. It's important to know. Seasons are very
Yeah.
important to note because, people can get hard on themselves. And then you just got to realize like there's seasons. Marsh, what I give you props for, and it's kind of why I work so hard when I have energy is because um I always think, there's going to be a season ahead that you need to bow out of work for a while. And that's why when I can work and like when I'm in a season of I can produce a lot, a lot of hours, I do. So some people are like, man, where's that intensity come from? And I'm just like, because I don't know when there's going to be a season of death where like I just need like a month or two just to like figure things out, or if there's going to be a season of, like you had like a kid, or just a season of life where just you need a mental break. But I think that's like my pressure, or like you get sick, like who knows, right? So it's just like that's
Right.
why I always like to work so hard when I can, because there might be times that I'm not expecting that it's like, hey, I need to chill out. And what better way to go, like how fortunate, man, you are, to
Yeah.
be able to. I know sometimes we have a lot of pressure. I know you have a lot of pressure, but how fortunate you are to be able to say you can go through that season, because that season comes or goes no matter what. So now it's like, does it come or go? And you have, the finances or the business to control it the
Yeah.
best way you like. The season's there. So it's like, can I just think you're in a better spot than most people that go through that season, because you're fortunate enough to be able to build a routine, being self-employed. So, and let's talk about
A
like being
million percent.
focused, because that's something I know has always been a topic of conversation of ours.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see. I mean, even over being your friend over the last, few months, I've noticed just your laser focus, just based on actually not even having a lot of conversations with like myself, right? So
Right.
I think that's very intentional and it's very cool. So just talk about that on how you, like, obviously the baby probably forced that, but explain a little
Yeah.
bit more on that focus.
Yeah. It's funny you bring that up because it is actually very intentional. I'm not talking to a lot of people right now. Just because in my, 26 years of life, I have spent the last few years really figuring out how I tick and who I am. And I only have so much capacity. And that's capacity to talk to people, capacity to work with my family, capacity to support others. And if I give up too much capacity, the stuff that really is the top of my plate gets impacted. And that's like my relationship with Danny, and that's like my relationship with my son, and that's like my relationship with my family, and then my business, which produces the life that Danny and I love. Um, those are my top, top, top. And and through that, um, it's really figuring out that like I have to be super intentional. Like if I try to talk to many people or I try to make too many plans, I still have moments where I get overwhelmed. Even though my cup is just massive now. Like I can take a lot because I've trained myself to be able to take a lot. Um, but I will still overflow. And there's been periods where I was so just broken hose overflowing that I will not allow myself to get back to there, because then I was not who I wanted to be for my wife. I wasn't who I wanted to be for me. Um, I wasn't the controlled mind that I like being. Um, so, so yeah, I mean, the laser focus comes from, I have something I need to fucking build. It needs to be built, and I can only do so much. So I have to pick, what am I building right now? And what I'm building right now is three businesses that will carry me through life, to where in the next 5 years I get to my $10 million a year in income, and I'm where I want to be. And then from there, I can decide to do whatever I want. That is the intention, is that I'm sacrificing now my time where, like, I missed our lunch the other day, and it was the most authentic apologies. Like, I love you guys, and I love spending time with you guys, my people who are wired like me, who have the same mindset as me. That stuff, that time's so special to me, but I had to sacrifice it. I had to sacrifice it because I had appointments that day, and that is just, I I was gonna say unfortunately where I'm at, but it's not unfortunately, it's intentionally. That's the period of life I'm in right now, is because I see $10 million a year. I'm not close to that yet, and I got a lot more building to do. And there's only so much Marshall can do. As much as I like to think that I'm invincible sometimes, I'm not. There's only so much I can do, and I have to make sure that I'm spending the time where I need to, so that in 5 years, when we're at that number, Danny and I can go do whatever we want. I can take all of you. I can take all my friends to go do whatever we want, and that's the time that I'm intentionally knowing that, okay, that's when I'm going to be at a place where, like, all right, I'm good. I can slow down.
It's cool to see, man. Like you're super self-aware. Just know, like I was listening to probably Andy Frizella, and he was talking about, hey, I've got I got friends that we might not even talk for 3 or 4 months. But he's like, do you know why they're my friends? Because they're building stuff. Like we are building stuff every day separately. And he's like, I'll get a text from one of my really, really close friends and might not even text them back for 3 weeks. But like we have mad respect for each other. And I might text them back. And 3 weeks later, they text me back. But the cool part about it was he was saying that there's something about his friends that are different where they don't have to get involved all day long with each, like they're building stuff that's like very important to themselves. It's very important to their families. It's very important to their futures. It's very important to other people's futures that are employed by them, that like they're just, he's like, I'm good. Like if we don't talk for 2 or 3 months, I'm good. Like I know if they needed me or I needed them and it was super urgent, they would be there in a second. And that's what I really like about some of the friendships that I have right now. Meaning like, like you and I might not talk like on a consistent basis, but then you have these friends where you're like, you just know straight up that like if they, even though they might not respond to a text every day, like you just know, like if they called you and were like, hey, I need you like right now, urgent, that like that person would like go cancel an appointment that made them money
Yeah.
because they know like they've got this mutual respect for each other. Like this person doesn't throw around urgent and doesn't throw around I'm in a problem lightly. It's not like your CRM isn't working. That's not a problem, right? It's like
Right.
that's just like called Tuesday before 10 a.m. at coffee. Like that's just a
Right.
normal day. It's like just the level of like knowing that what are our problems and when we need help are totally different or defined differently than others. So man, mad respect. Seeing it from the outside in, I give you so much props because I've noticed it. I respect it. And I am more intrigued by those people anymore that can pull it off. Because that's hard, man. Like how have you learned to say no to that stuff? Because that's an art. Because you
Bro,
got
it's
around you, I'm
hard.
sure that I'm sure people have questioned some things, or I'm sure you've got some friends who are like, hey, you've bowed out of this group text or fantasy
Yeah.
football or whatever, and you're just like, man, like it's just not my jam.
Yeah. It's hard. And I'm very blessed that I've been very intentional with my circle for a very long time. Um, and I'm very, as a lot of, you and the listeners, I'm very authentic. Like I tell everybody exactly what I'm building, and like I have no problem telling them like, hey, I'm not at a place where like I can go fuck off with you for a bit. And like, and they're in my circle because there's okay, I love you, good luck type deal. Um, and that has been a huge support. It's these small decisions of I for years, I have never just been a person trying to please somebody. I could just give a fuck if somebody likes me or not. And I've been that way for years, years. And it used to make me lonely. And it used to really take a mental toll on me where like I never thought I could get depressed. I mean, I sound like an arrogant prick, but like people used to ask me all the time, is that like, are you on Molly? Because like I mean, you can tell, like you can vouch for this. Like I'm a very kind of upbeat, lots of energy. Like I love life. I love life. I love life. I love spending time with the people I love. Like I love being who I am. I love my life, and it put me in a period of depression because like I was so lonely because like I had not found my circle yet. And it almost makes me emotional because it led me to my circle. Like it led me to you. It led me to my relationship with Daniel. It led me to Mikey. It led me to Dave Z. It led me to Kev and like Fred and just like, and these people who just are amazing businessmen and amazing people. Like just people that like I've dreamed about since I was a kid of like guys that I don't need to text you back. I don't expect you to always text me back. I don't expect Kevin to always text me back. I know eventually I'll get a response. And if it's important, they're smart enough to read the text. They will respond if I actually need a response right now. If it's not, and I never give it a second thought, but I know that, hey, I miss you. I want to go have lunch with you. Let's book it out a month in fucking advance because that's the only option we're going to have. And let's make it super intentional to spend time together.
Yeah.
And I know that just we're all on the same wavelength. We're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's make it intentional, but it's going to have to be in a month. Like, dude,
Dude,
great. Like,
I'm
there's
the
no explanations.
I'm the same way right now. Like I think it's really cool, man, how self-aware you are of just like it's kind of an energy. Like I think of my coach used to say, like, Chris, is this sustainable? Like everything I was doing, was it sustainable? As I went from, you know, a younger realtor to getting a little bit older, like he'd always say, like, is this sustainable? Meaning, are you just working on hustle muscle? Are you working on a lot of energy? Like, could you see this version working for you when you're 45 and 46? Because you might want to start thinking it through of like, where do you get your energy in the day? And it started getting to the point where, like with my assistant and booking stuff, where I was like, hey, I can't do that much stuff all in one day. I mean, you need some gaps, like
Yeah.
I'm getting to like, I'm going to lunch with people and it's an hour and then I got to get to the other side of town. And now I'm like cutting off the lunch because I'm like, hey, I got to go. And that doesn't feel good. And then now I'm just like running around. So just like it's all these things that's very self-aware of just like looking at the end of the week and saying, let me look at my calendar and did this vibe? Like was I like, I did what I had to do, but like did I actually could I have just been a little bit more on offense and not defense and structured this better so that my
Yeah.
energy was up so that's sustainable. And I'm actually going through it right now of just, you know, like teaching a class tomorrow. And then I'm like, okay, after I teach a class for 2 hours, it's a lot of energy. So it's like, how many
Yeah.
more things can I go do? Like, so even Brittany's known this for years, man. My wife, she's straight up known, like, if she books something with like friends at night, she almost has to look at my schedule that day. What's hard is my schedule might change before, like, so she got used to just being like, hey, I booked this out 3 weeks. But then she used to know, like, hey, if that day comes and there's a lot of things that Chris had to do where he had to talk to people, he might
Yeah.
bow out of going to this because he has to bow out of that. Otherwise, it leads into his next day where he's just like on empty. And if I wake up the next day and I've got 6 more appointments and I'm already on empty, but dude, it's just being self-aware. And it's a lot
Yeah.
of people might not understand it because you're not a yes man, and I'm not either. Like I'm very comfortable with the word no. I always have been. And so like that's really it can be challenging in a world where you might be around a lot of yes people because you're just the one who's always like, no, 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 no. And then they might be like, well, when's there a yes? And I'm like, that's a good question. I say yes to a lot of things. I say yes to I I say yes to everything I want to say yes to is how I define it. Like I don't know if there's any explanation that needs to be had because spending 35 minutes on telling them why there's a yes and a no is almost that would be draining as well, right? So, dude, just props on being self-aware. I think I'm going through the same thing with you of just and we go through different levels of our businesses where we have different commitments and different priorities. And so at every stage, I feel like there's a new version of ourselves that we have to create, that we have to protect ourselves that we're still living like a quality life while completing some missions. So,
Yeah. 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 Which is kind of, I mean, it's the whole reason we're even doing it. If we don't like our life, why are we doing it?
right. I get it. I get it. Let me ask you this, Marsh, because you, this is when I brought you on, I wanted to talk about this because you're someone that's just wired for more. And I'm not saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying, like, you
Right.
are, like, from the day I met you, probably 2 years ago, it was just, he's wired to just go produce. Where does that come from, man? Like, I'm wondering now as I talk to a lot of realtors and I hear people who tell me goals, and there's some people I'm like, I don't know, like this might be more of just wired that way. What do you think it is?
Yeah.
'Cause you're all like every time I talk to you, have like when you used to come onto our Zooms on Tuesdays that we do weekly, you would just come in with just straight like I'm doing this, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, that's more than what most people do in like 3 years. And we talked last Tuesday, and he's already building something newer. Where does that come from, man?
Yeah. Um, I think it comes from two different areas. One that, um, well, on the financial side, I grew up with some of the most, in my opinion, amazing parents. Like everybody has childhood trauma because not every parent gets it right. I mean, bless their hearts, as much as we try. Now that I'm in this spot, I know I'm not going to get it all right. Um, but my parents did everything they could, and like we never had much money. Um, like we were all very successful athletes, and I saw how deeply like my parents wanted to do everything. Like they wanted to do the Disney World trips. They wanted to take the random Disneyland trips. But like if we wanted to go out of state, if we wanted to go on a vacation, it's like a year in advance because like they had to save up money. And I knew from a very, I mean, like I was probably 11 or 12 where I'm not going to live that life. I want to have money. Because like if I want to tell my world for 2 or 3, if it really came down to it, that I wanted to tell my world for like 2 or 3 weeks, like fuck off, I can. I will. I fucking will. And I will take my wife and I will take my son and I will go do whatever the fuck I want for 2 or 3 weeks. Never done it. Because again, I love my life. Because this is who I am. This is how I'm wired. But I can if I wanted to. And that was always a really deep understanding. And then outside of that, it comes from something not financial at all. It comes from me wanting to be a person that can provide value to the people in my life. And like my mom, she works for me and she makes damn good money working for me. My dad, they're partnering with me on some flips so I can help them make some more money. My brother, he's now doing phone calls for me so that he can make some more money. My sister, she works for me so she can make some more money. Like I can guide her. Like she's starting her own catering company, incredibly successful chef. I mean, just this girl's just a G in the kitchen. I mean, her shit's ridiculous. And she's starting her catering company. And I've been able to guide her because I have the knowledge. Hey, I would probably start here. I create your logo, your slogan, create a basic business plan. You're not going to have a ton of idea of what it's going to look like. I can't really support you in the financials because I've never built any kind of catering company before. But what I can tell you is what it should look like. And then what I can help you do is create a marketing platform where you can get some leads. So when you get to that point, call me. We'll build it together. If I didn't have the knowledge, couldn't have offered that to her. If I didn't, my father-in-law, I bought him a 1974 Volkswagen Bug. It was like 12 G's, and I saw it. I saw it and I was, wow, Todd would love that. The next day we picked up a trailer. I said, hey, take off work. We picked up a trailer. We did a day trip out to California and we bought him this Volkswagen Beetle. And that is why I build what I do, is because of the fact that like when my people are in hardships, it's never, man, I'm sorry you're there. It's, hey, before some dumb shit actually happens, like grind your way out. Like I'm not a bank, but know that you will never lose your home and you will never lose your necessities for life. I got you. If it gets to that, you call me. And I like being that person. And because I never had that person. And that's what drives me and the most authentic answer.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I listen to this podcast often, and this guy just says, create the man you wish you had in your life. But man,
Yeah.
like he said that. I mean, I just got chills. Like I
Yeah.
literally just
Me
got
too.
chills when I said it because we make things so complex. And he says, just create the man that you wished you had in your life. And as you say that, that's not saying you could do that without saying you had a bad upbringing. You can say that
Yeah.
without saying you had a bad dad. Like,
Yeah.
like I have a really good dad, right? But like still the point is just be the person that you wish you had. And so I think that's really where a lot of that conversation is coming from, man. Like I've noticed since I've known you, like how you're such a giver. Um, and that's like really interesting how like you're working for that freedom to be able to hook people up when they're having issues because you're just you're real. Like there's a lot of people around us that have financial issues. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no way around it. I don't think anybody doesn't have people around them that are hurting some reason financially. And but what's cool about that is they have these traits in their lives that are so cool, meaning like they might be having financial issues, but then I look at them and I'm like, hey, they have this in their life that I don't have. Like I would be zero on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd be zero in what they're a 10 at. And you just realize, like, okay, if we all just play this life as if let's just go do what we're good at, and we somewhat have a circle where we hook each other up, whether it's a business circle where we hook each other up, whether it's a family dynamic where we hook each other up, a friend circle where we hook each other up. Like everyone's got a different sense of currency. And it doesn't have to be like the dollar. I mean, there's just some people genuinely around us that are going to love better, right? Meaning, like, if I
Right.
have a deep hurt, like, I might not be the first person that someone would call in my circle of five, but like I know who I would call if I was in that situation because like that's just who they are. Like God made them that way, and thank God they made them that way. So I've noticed that about you where like you want to be the one that is a source for people and help them out. That's super cool.
Yeah.
I mean, because you're trying, like,
Yeah.
you legitimately, that's cool that you said it that way. It's like that's why you're selling so many homes. That's why you're building businesses to just financial security for you, and not financial security for all, financial security for who you choose to
My
hook.
circle
Yeah, that's
for
dope,
sure.
man. That's super cool. So what's going down with let's go more tactical into real estate. So last time you were on the show was probably about a year and a half ago,
Yep.
humming with that 72 sold model. I think when you were on the show, that's
Yeah.
what you were doing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I was
Yeah,
with
man,
Hague.
that was cranking, just listings coming left and right, and what a good run that was. Um, and then things have switched for you. So just talk about a little bit about changes in real estate since you were last on the podcast, and just kind of more on the production side. What's going down?
Yeah. So I mean, I think I'm probably doing more business this year than I did last year with Hague, which in turn is all self-generated, which then in turn means more of the P&L looks better. Um, but pretty much what we're doing is we've created a couple personal funnels that are creating an abundance of leads, more of a quantity standpoint rather than a quality standpoint, with an intention of being piecing the back end of the puzzle together. If there's a way I can qualify more of these people that would not be able to qualify. So that's what I'm figuring out now. Is it's a very big question. I don't quite know how to do it yet. I'm figuring it out. Is the people who would not normally qualify, how can I get them to qualify? They really want to buy a house. How can I get them into a house? And that's what I'm learning. That's what I'm trying to figure out. And I built that intentionally. And then through that, we have a few different lead sources. You were the one who taught me don't put all my eggs in one basket. So I created four. Um, and through those four, we're doing probably our best month was like 14 or 15 closings. Our worst month has been four, which like, you know, still not terrible, but I really am trying to consistently be around 10 right now with just me. And then I have three agents joining the team. Um, I keep my 10, they do another 15, five each. That'll put me at 25 a month. and then that 25 a month based on hypothetical P&L will have me producing what I would like to produce as far as a resale standpoint, which would allow me to have enough liquid to be able to go build the flip division the way I'd like. And if I can get up to being able to do 4 or 5 flips at a time, roughly selling 2 a month, that would give me the income there that I want, which then in turn allows me to start going into the bigger stuff, which would be more like apartment complexes, value adding mobile housing parks, some developing. I'm actually starting to consider maybe getting in the developing space eventually. I have learned I need to slow down, so I'm fine tuning what I have now. And we may attack the development space a little bit later, but again, it's all with the intention of I got 5 years to get to 10 a year, and that's kind of where I'm at.
I like how you said the word funnel. I'm noticing with a lot of people, they use that word, and those are the people that I think are, you know, doing well. I don't know, like
Yeah,
just that word alone means when you talk about funnel, that to me means because that's what we have in our office. I'm like, hey, like here's our different funnels. Like, obviously like a referral that comes in, like everything. I just look at it like when you get somebody who wants to buy a house, somewhat of the same process. It's the funnel of like where you get the lead. And there's some
right.
complexities in that. Like, if you get a referral through if you get a referral lead, that goes through the top of the funnel very quickly before it gets to buy or sell, or there's not a lot of conversion, right? Where if you get an internet lead, I just like the word because funnel to me means you're solving problems. And I think more of like an assembly line of, ooh, if you got to get these people down an assembly line, there's like 6 stages. And we got
Yep.
to start looking at like which ones are clogged and which one aren't. Doesn't mean that products aren't coming off the assembly line. It's just how do we get more product off the assembly line? And that's like there's like different sections of the assembly line. I think when you're looking at your real estate business that way, it's very eye-opening because you're like, okay, like we got leads coming on the assembly line, that someone's got to call them and convert them, then it's got to go to a consultation, then it's got to go to showings, and it's got to go to closings. And it's an art to pull off. I mean, when you're just doing like one deal a month, that's super simple. When you're doing a funnel and you're trying to like get a lot of leads and close a lot of deals, it could be a hard day to get through because the assembly line might break on the assembly line just breaks while you're still got clients and business and life.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, how do you handle that, man? Because that's like just when you come into your office, is it just like you become comfortable with knowing that you're just going to solve challenges?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to be comfortable with like, hey, there's going to be periods of life where stress is going to come. Um, like we lost both our ISAs within a matter of 2 months for personal reasons. And our ISA lead gen is a huge part of our business. So the very next morning, I gave myself 12 hours to piss and moan. I was like, yeah, because I think I found out at like 2 or 3 p.m. And I was like, I remember intentionally telling Danny, okay, I'm giving myself 12 hours. I'm gonna bitch about this till tomorrow morning. And then after that 12 hours, I woke up at 5. I was in the office at 6. I had my VAs jump on early. I taught my VAs within like 2 or 3 hours how to set appointments via text and our Facebook funnel. And then I had them start booking my own appointments for me. And I was doing the preliminary phone call while we pivoted to back to hiring an ISA. Um, so I had to problem solve that. I had to go through these hiring processes. The universe spoiled me again. We have an amazing new dialer. She's absolutely kicking ass. And we're hiring one more. And it was the understanding that, okay, this sucks. Recognize it, be with it, then strap your boots on. It's because you can't let it fall apart. What's the other option? It's either I go figure it out and I problem solve and I fix it, or it falls apart. And obviously that's not an option. So did a cold plunge, went and worked out for like 2 hours. Did the sauna for about 45 minutes, and then I was in my office and I was fixing it. And I think it's the understanding that like with what we're building, sometimes it's gonna suck, and like fucking shit happens. I mean,
It's fair. It's almost fair, Marsh, to say it's almost fair to say that it's like Dave says, pick your suck. You know,
yeah,
it's just Not having employees means you're going to spend every hour, every weekend doing everything. That kind of
Right.
sucks. And then, all right, well, now I've got 4 employees and one quits. Well, that kind of sucks. And closing 0 homes a year, that kind of sucks. And closing 100 has it has its challenges. Like that kind of sucks. So it's like Dave always has joked with me since I've met him. And he's like, just pick your suck. And we say that respectfully. Like, I
Yeah,
got
of course.
actually clients that listen to this show. And like, I think that everybody can still understand that like this is a business and it's a job. And there's still things. I mean, even though happy client and getting keys and everyone's happy, like there's still a lot of things operationally behind the scenes that people don't see. They're like, wow, they don't even know what's going down because we're trying to build a company and not just service one client. And so there's complexities to that. But, I recently had a realtor reach out to me and he asked, well, what if hiring an assistant? Well, what if the assistant doesn't work out? And I'm like, they they won't.
Yeah.
And I think it was the meaning maybe they will. But like I said, like just go into it knowing like, well, what if it doesn't work out? It won't. So like when I hire someone, I'm just like, it's not going to work out because what other, I mean, can you be let down at that point if you're just like, hey, this isn't going to work? Because at that point, you're just saying like, this is only going to kind of my saying of this works. It's good until it's not good anymore. When someone's like, oh my gosh, this is so good. My thought process is, and I'm talking to myself is, it's good until it's not. Meaning, like, it's always good until it's not good. And so, like, that's the art of running a business is just being like, it's good until it's not good. You being self aware, it's like, hey, give myself a proper amount of time to heal. You said 12 hours, sauna, gym. Like, I can tell that you've kind of have figured out how to go into a productive state of rage. Like,
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
me go into like, let me cold plunge sauna, workout, give myself but you didn't say 2 weeks, you didn't say 4 weeks. It's not a 4 year plan on how to get back to par. It's just, hey, let me go focus on myself, figure things out, get back into the office. Didn't think I was hiring today, but here we are. Like that's the art of building a business is just walking. Matt Chick said it one time in a mastermind that maybe you were at, and he's like, how about you just walk outside and get punched in the face 3 times a day and then it might work out. And I was like, man, like, that's just it. You know what I mean? Like that's just it. Like
Yeah.
that's it. Like you just gotta go get knocked in the teeth a few times and be okay with it. Like
And
Tyson
being
said, you have a
intentional.
game plan until someone punches you in the face or whatever. And it's like that's very true.
Yeah. Yeah. And being intentional, like the listeners, when Chris said that, like, understanding that, like, hey, it's not going to work out. I mean, it's not that it's a pessimistic point of view. It's more that it's the internal preparation that, like, hey, it's not going to work out. That's okay. I'm going to have places, I'm going to have things in place. I'm going to have items in motion. I'm going to understand that, like, hey, if it doesn't work out, okay, so be it. I prepared for this. I'm good. My world will continue to spin. I will correct it. I'll fix it. We'll be back to normal. And I just like being really intentional is like, that's what I want to make sure everybody understands. It's not this pessimistic point of view. It's like, oh, nothing works out for me. It's all like, okay, life's good. Life is good. Shit's not going to work out. I'm going to constantly have problems. I used to be at this point of view where, like, I didn't want my business to have problems. And it's not realistic because if you don't have problems, you're not scaling. And if you're not scaling, you're not building. Why the fuck are we doing this? Even in life. I mean, just like if your world has no issues, you're bored. I mean, and if you say you're not, I mean, you're an amazing human because you're incredibly content with where you're at. And like, dude, I wish I was you. But if you have zero problems, nothing that like you have to go put on a helmet, like, and just get into the dirt. In my very humble personal opinion, if I'm wrong, please do your thing. More power to you. I wish I was you. I swear to God. But most people are not wired that way. And if you aren't wired that way, you don't have problems, you're not building something that's worthy of who you are. And that's the simple truth.
I like how you cleared that up, man. Like it's not a pessimism. It's almost just it's a very realistic person that says it's almost just saying like, hey, I know this year there are going to be challenges. I just don't know which ones they are. Like I used to when I walked into my office, I'm saying this how like I don't say it as much anymore, but I used to walk into my office almost daily and say, I want 5 problems. Because I knew that if I saw 5 problems every day, I was making more money because that's just only meant for certain people. Like only so many people can get hit and just say like, I got to keep going. Let's solve that problem, because solving that problem is actually the currency of owning a business. Because if everything was just super simple, everyone would close a lot of transactions. So it's the ones that emotionally can get a problem in the day and not think about it for 3 days. They get a problem, fix it, go to the next one. So I used to say like, hey, I want 5 problems to happen. And that was like almost my days. The second I get 5 problems and fix it, I've had a good day. But it was
Right.
gamifying the problems into something that was fun instead of something that wasn't fun. Or I'll always say, I still say this to this day, break the system. Meaning,
Yeah.
I set up an assembly line, and every assembly line, if that assembly line is always humming, then you're not putting enough product on, because if you put enough product onto an assembly line, there has to be a certain point where like it gets clogged up. There's somebody moving too slowly, or the assembly line over there breaks and it needs a little bit of grease to get going faster. So I would always say like break the system, because if you're breaking the system, that isn't a bad day. It's actually a really good day, because now you have to level up,
Right.
build a better assembly line, and that hopefully produces more outcome moving forward. But yeah, it's definitely not it's not a pest. But dude, it's the way you're wired, man. It's knowing that you had to say that, because like that's how we're wired. And to me, it's very optimistic how I speak.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But dude, to others though, it can be very annoying, because they're just like, no, I want, flowers and roses and everything good every day. And I'm like, that's a cute story, because and
You're like, dude, I wish you the best of luck.
if you build that assembly line that just closes like 80, 90 transactions a year and smells like roses, like tell me where that class is at, because I'm paying a lot of money for it and I will be front row for sure. Man, as we're winding down, Marsh, what's got you most optimistic about real estate over the next 6 months? Because we're going into 2024 almost here soon. Like kind of our actions we do over the next 2 and 3 weeks are going to produce our January closing. So I'm already starting to think of 2024 a lot in my head. And maybe you're like me, where you're like, oh my gosh, I got to do this again. It's like,
Yeah.
gotta go try to win the Super
Yeah.
Bowl again. Like this is hard, right?
Um,
What are you looking forward to? What are you excited about?
honestly, I'm in a firm place where, yeah, I got about 3 minutes. I'm in a
Cool.
firm place right now where um market can't get worse. That's at least that's what I'm claiming. Because the reality is like if I can find a way to be who I want to be right now in this market, when interest rates are high, sellers are still asking for a lot of money for houses. Buyers are wanting the book if you're on the listing side, like just a lot of shit going wrong. Where like when I tell people I'm still flipping, they're like, "You're still flipping? How are you making any money?" I'm like, dude, you ain't looking hard enough if you really are talking like that. So like keep your opinions to yourself there. So that's the average consumer. And so I'm looking forward to continuing to find this rhythm in a market that is strange, so that when the market turns back into my business plan's favor, instead of being like, all right, I'm still doing pretty good, I'm going to be one of the top of the game. And that's what I'm looking forward to, because eventually it has to happen.
Cool, man. Marsh, I appreciate the conversation. Haven't talked to you in this long in a long time, and
Yeah.
actually got to really catch up with you. So I appreciate your friendship, man. And just keep building, bro. All
All right, buddy. Love
right,
you.
later,
Talk
buddy.
soon.
Bye.